Hey there, welcome to a new video. My name is BassTi, and in today's video I will be talking about the best approach when it comes to remixing a tune. You will be able to apply this knowledge in your own remixes, also when it comes to remix contests. I think you will be able to learn a lot from this video. Also, this video will contain two parts. In the first half we will be talking about some examples of my remixes I've done in the past, so we will get a quick outline of what my approach looks like. In the second and more detailed half we will be having a look into my body bag dubstep remix, which I've made for the remix contest. He was running a few weeks ago, and you will be able to gather some nice information and tips how you can create yourself unique remixes and also be able to maybe win remix contests with them. I think my approach is really good when it comes to remixing a tune, and you will be able to learn lots of cool stuff. So let's get right into it. Alright, let's start by comparing a few remixes, and then I will give you an insight in what's important when it comes to remixing, what elements to choose, and how you can stick out with your remixes in contests, for example. I've made several remixes over the past couple of years, and I've also won a few remix competitions actually. One of the first remixes I ever did was the remix for Seth Parisotto, the Happy Distortion Day remix. It's this one, and it sounds like this. The joy or nothing, no one near. 20-something pictures gotta be the coolest distortion day. And you obviously can hear we have the vocal, which is the main element, and it's always important to at least keep one main element and build everything around it. And in this case I kept the vocal and also the arrangement and rebuild it with my sounds and did some changes here and there to make it fit. Another example would be the Skrillex remix for the Push song. And I also just kept the vocal and built everything around it. I even came up with a chord progression for it. The next one on the heavier side would be the Marauder remix, for example, for Avoid the Cause. And here I also made sure to keep the structure and just rebuild it with my own sounds. Here you can see my procedure, keeping the main element to get a connection to the original. Of course, this is why we do remixes, because we want to reinterpret the original in a different way. This is what the purpose of remixes is, and then adding your own stuff. But of course, you should not make it too complicated by inventing things which have nothing to do with the original. And the tune I want to break down today in the arrangement context, and also how you can stick out with your remixes, is the body bag remix for midsection for the remix contest. And it sounds like this. You will also have a look into the Ableton project file later. A little issue I noticed when I checked some remixes on the Label Radar website on which the contest was hosted is that on the one hand, the remixes were sounding too close to the original. They just changed the drums, they just changed the rhythm or the arrangement and just kept the original sounds. And on the other hand, some people invented some completely out of tune stuff in which there's no way you can say this is a remix of this tune. I think it's pretty difficult for many people to get this right, and I hope you will be able to understand what I'm talking about in a few seconds. Alright, let's actually get into the Ableton project file. As I already showed, the remix starts like this. And when we compare this to the original, you can see the original starts like this. So we already have a different vibe going on. I'm going for a more epic, dramatic vibe, while the original was more mystical, if you know what I mean. So that's really important to recontextualize the song and give it a different feel, a different atmosphere. Yeah. Then we have the vocals. Obviously, when remixing a song which already has vocals, you should definitely keep the vocals, because this is the most unique thing in a song usually, and people remind of human aspects the most when thinking of songs they like, for example. Coming back, wrap me up, come put me in a body bag. Eyes closed, no ain't coming back. Wrap me up, come put me in a body bag. And yeah, this is why I obviously also include the vocals, which are sounding like this here. One kiss from your lips, I ain't coming back. And you can hear the vocals are sounding different because I pitched down the entire tune by 2 semitones. It's always nice to work with a different key, because then, especially when you are taking part in a remix contest, the judge, in this case ModStep, does not have to listen to the same intro all and over again, or the same key in this case. And this is why I pitched it down by 2 semitones. The original was in D sharp, and I pitched it down to C sharp. Another thing I changed was the tempo. In the original we had 140, and I sped it up to 145. And later the original went faster. We got a little drum and bass section here. I wanted to keep the BPM switch idea, and this is why I did a slowdown here in the second drop. We will come back to this later in a few minutes. As I mentioned before in the intro, I went for a different vibe, and this is why I layered a lot of atmosphere sounds and pads, as you can see. Also included the vocal right at the beginning, with some snippets of it, so we already know this is dealing with body bag. Yeah, some randomization going on. And we have this little theme going on, which was originally the first idea when I made the remix. I was thinking of a little melody which could be played behind the vocal. This was the first initial idea I came up with. While making the remix, I decided to let this be a transitioning element. But yeah, in this next section, it's being played a few times in the background, just as a background element as well. Also, I went for the same bass notes, because I wanted to keep some of the elements from the original. And we had the reese bass stem, for example, and I just remade it with a different reese bass. Obviously, it's also pitched down by 2 semitones, but in the principle, it's the same. And yeah, then we are building up the tension with more orchestral and epic elements, like these war toms, which I really like using, and these also contribute to this different vibe, this different feel, while remaining the original with the vocal and with the bass notes. And as you also could hear right now, we have this choir going on. I got this choir called Chorus last year. It wasn't cheap, it was quite expensive, but now I think I finally found the perfect use case for it, because the choir chants are actually saying body bag, as you might have noticed already. Which is really fun and contributes to the entire remix a ton. I was so happy when I wrote the choir and the chants were already sounding perfect. And of course I had to reuse this element in the drops later on. Now we have some layers going on, some dystopian sounds. Yeah, and then we are transitioning into the build-up. Also the vocal again. And here you can hear we had this main theme. Da 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 dum da da dum dum. So my goal was to keep the arrangement of the original drop pattern, which was sounding like this. Da 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 da. Of course, pitched down by 2 semitones. Then the sustainy thing. Da, da, the brass, and that repeats. And this was the goal in my remix, to redo this in a tearout context. So this is what I said, recontextualizing the original. And in one of the next videos, I will also feature the sound design. This is more of a how to do a good remix video. But yeah, we had the same arrangement. I also kept the brass, and I also used some of the stems in the main sound to just reuse some elements, because in the end I mostly just kept the vocals and the brasses, and I also wanted to use it in the main sound as a layer. And then in order to break it up and even make it more unique and letting it not sound too close to the original, I decided to make a different B part. by using the body bag choir vocal. So we also get remembered it's about body bag. Body bag. And then we have the sustain thing again, which was also in the original, but with a different sound, obviously. And it's playing the same notes, just pitched down by 2 semitones. Then this new part I came up with. Entirely new, because I wanted to do a little tearout gun section here. And then arrangement from the original again. And of course the brass, and the brusses also have some different layers, like this one, and then together they sound like this. Really makes them more epic and yeah, better. Then we have the midsection, which of course has to use the vocal again. And then we have the slowdown. In the original it was going faster, we are slowing down now. So we are keeping the idea of the BPM change, but just the opposite way, which is also kind of unique. I haven't seen this in any other of the remixes which were submitted to the contest. And yeah, it's an entirely new vibe. It's even more epic, and since I'm going for a more minimalistic approach in this section, it creates more tension. You don't always need too many sounds. You can also create lots of tension with minimal sounds. And compared to the first build-up, for example. And yeah, this is the second drop. Also, the cool trick I want to show you in one of the next videos is how you can stretch down vocals really efficient without having to deal with artifacts. I can make a separate video about that in the future. In the second drop, I didn't want to copy the same arrangement again because it's just the same one from the first drop. I wanted to do something different, but keeping the same sounds. So I did not reinvent the wheel basically. I kept the choir, I kept the original, but just slower, and it's playing a different rhythm. And the choir is also chopped up differently with some additional new chants. And then we have this new sound, which I came up with, which is pretty heavy, and also the rhythm kinda gets crazy here. I love the section so much, and it was so much fun creating this. You can't even imagine how much fun I had while making this drop. It was one of the best sessions ever, really. I wanted to go crazy with the rhythm, with the sound design, in order to impress the mode step a little bit. Then I even went more crazy with the choir in this section right here, by creating this tension moment. And then it drops with the same sound from the first drop, the sustain, but in a different context with some pitch movement. And then I'm just doing some more crazy stuff here with a different pattern change. And keeping the choir, keeping the sense, so the vibe is being the same and the energy is increasing and increasing. It's not stopping. I think I did a really good job by recontextualizing the original and creating something really unique, which stands out compared to many other remixes. And I think I would definitely have some good chances in winning the contest. It would definitely be a dream come true. I hope you enjoyed this little video about how my approach is when it comes to remixing. I think there are some useful tips in it, which you can adapt to your own remixes and which you can also apply for remix contests, like a different BPM, a different key, different sounds, not just keeping the original sounds. I just kept the vocals and the brusses, and I remade everything myself, but in a different context with same arrangement, and also changing it up from time to time in order to make it more unique. That's basically the entire magic. Let me see your thoughts about my approach in the comments, and also feel free to support this remix on SoundCloud. It would really mean a lot to me. Have a great day. See you in the next video or in the next stream, and goodbye.